In drenched aluminium, we change into clean clothes without meaning, became more clear about what we wanted, an impermanent, strange, burned look having nothing to do with intensity. And the travelogue that animals are awake. Their bodies are restored along with their minds and the unique aspects of their personalities. As they shower together in the sunlit hotel room, we watch blood move through their limbs in bashful, calm motions like smoke from an oil well, bright and without shame. It passes silently without shadow of fragility, degeneration, or death, masquerading as insight. It is beautiful, clear blood. It does not boil. It need not boil. All its phrases are completed in each motion. All notes are driven to their ultimate values. The animals cry out with delight, as blood is something everyone can recognize, as beauty, strength, power, things that everyone sees and understands clearly, with two very obvious, distinct meanings soaking through our genes, through cynicism's thin cries, nameless, beautiful, clear cries, as ultimate values, whatever. If someone had given him antidepressants, he'd still be around. Any blood-lit hotel room would do. The animals, freshly resurrected, would shower. We would use an intimate style of address. It need not boil. If it were to boil, the tone of their cries would change. I needed them to cry out in delight. The blood would pass through their bodies and converge towards one point, the hotel room's strange burn look, an address in Wembley, bloodlit by two translucent animals. Returning, I would fail to keep this simple, strange, burned room alive without forget it. We changed into clean clothes without meaning, became more clear about what we wanted, an impermanent, strange burn look having nothing to do with reality. Let us describe how they went. In late December, south through Bow on the A12, it was a very cold night, and the different scales of the city press up against the rolled up windows of 1,000 nasty hatchbacks, screaming in and out beneath the giant stay-at-home signs like 1,000 speeding fuck yous. I pull at the hem of my hood, try to get it to cover my face. Big yellow storages and cement mixing facilities stumble by. Traffic reports crackle on the radio. A bright three-quarter moon splits the top of the windscreen, and we head down the A2 towards Dartford, the Christmas lights flashing from the fronts of whitewashed semi-detached homes. Purfleet to the north of us, along the other side of the Thames, and an immense glass emptiness spreads before us, perfectly flat and unresponsive, blacked out under the attentive light of the moon, and absorbing and recycling that light. And I wasn't even listening anymore, but I thought I heard you saying, "That's a park." No drama. One. Sorry, this is like a really violent poem, but no more violent than anything. One. So what do you think beauty is? Being stabbed to death in the park, being suffocated in the back of a lorry, being abused in a care home? What kind of questions are those anyway? When things get harder, people who fuck themselves up for consolation start to die. We're supposed to be able to say it like we learned something. I don't even care how it sounds anymore. It's the end of the year. I'm going to explain the poems I've written because I can't leave them be and have to keep picking at them like scabs. It's the only thing I've learned about myself. The tyrannical insistence of the urge to make sense of things, which is insistent and tyrannical as the desire to fuck yourself up and block everything out, which is the inverse of it. It's twin. Two kinds of tyranny, both of which screams of feedback. Stop talking like this. Anyway, in August of this year, I wrote two poems. One of them was a sonnet about the eyes of US anti-racist protesters whose eyes were shot out by police in American cities, which I worked on for a day or two and then deleted and discussed. The other started out as a description of a picture of two women dancing with sparklers in a park in Wembley before morphing into an inscrutable parable about two delicate, transparent animals showering together in a hotel room who cry out in delight, dissolve and are reborn, only to repeat the same cycle and again for all time. I've been reading Milton that month, and when I was done, I realized I'd involuntarily reproduced this idea of Eden as a transient space of human sexual fulfillment and togetherness that was fixated in the extreme delicacy of that state, and that something was attaching it in my mind to the image of those sisters who a few hours later would lose their lives violently. And I accepted that connection and never considered until months later that the animals might also be eyes, sacs of purposeless fluid blown out of the human skull by beanbag rounds or rubber bullets, or the 40 people found dead in a lorry in Essex. In the end, I wanted these poems to be more inarticulate than me, but also more loyal. I thought that a cursory understanding of arterial roads was more important than even our most advanced political demands, and I couldn't care less who thinks that sounds reactionary. The constant interchange of feelings of extreme violence and the need for intimacy is just a reality in me, like the unwanted associations that develop in our heads. There's no reason to be afraid of it. And as the wound in the leg of the heroin user by the cash machine is healed by the reality of our translucent and delighted bodies, and all of this shit that I never would have believed to be possible continues, all I really have left to say to you is, I need you to know, too. This is how it goes. All those words and images are beautiful. And all the words and images retrieved from phones at the bottom of ponds and from airtight containers, all their words for protection and assistance, all their images of the simple pleasure of being together in a park in West London has been like my whole, I don't know, I guess my whole goddamn theme has been the time it took them to be seen, you know, and all the space around them, and the whole weight of that body of water, which I have felt as clearly as anything I felt or believe can be retrieved from me, along with the darkness, heat, and shape of those containers, like a song off somebody's phone. So don't talk to me about words, you know. Phones are more beautiful than words. Their images are more real, and the music that comes off them is crisper and more complete. They contain coldness and the heat of containers, and even the weight of them is real, and what is scraped from them is real. And everything I'm saying to you is so obvious, it's so bait. Phones are more beautiful than words. The most beautiful are at the bottom of ponds and in airtight containers. They contain words, and images come off them like music, like heat from anybody in this world, and each of them combines with the other, you know, like everything I've felt and believed, and we can see into them. Everything can be retrieved from them, even the weight and the heat they contain, and the wind through their airtight containers that speaks clearly to me about what has been and will be, like, I don't know, a Samsung Galaxy or something. And this has been pretty much my whole goddamn theme, can't you see? It's like everything I felt and believed, and all the shoppers passing by, and the cordons on the ground with the NOS canisters, and you sparklers. It's just scenery, and all that stupid shit we say is so bait and so obvious. Don't you see? The parks will be like screens. They will show everything that has been and will be, and we will walk in them in bare feet to stop the dumb shit that we said from appearing like paths behind us. And when we arrive, it will be night, and the pond will seem more beautiful than seas, and the phone at its bottom more beautiful than words which flow effortlessly across oceans. So don't speak to me about messages in bottles. Every day I wake up, don't understand why I'm alive, don't give a shit about the audience of the future. And in my memory, there is no future, only the audience that wasn't there. And in my future, there is no memory, only the audience that wants to hear it. So no drama. It's time to go now. There are people following us along the paths. Everything I felt and believed has been forced into words, into all these airtight containers I don't even want to use anymore. Let the others deal with the bottles. The wind's picking up now, and the bins are overflowing. Everything we said, every last one of those words has a phone at its bottom, and everything we felt and believed speaks on those phones like there is no future, and everything will pass away like music off a phone or like flames in parked vehicles until nothing remains but airtight containers, used sparklers, and empty bottles strewn on the ground, dumb symbols, all that stupid shit we say, which floats away as everything we felt we believe says no, there won't be a future. And even if there is one, we've seen it already, along with everything that has been and could be, and it can be said in just a few words I don't even want to use anymore. Can you see? All the paths are disappearing. They're sinking back into the ponds. The parks are shutting down. In the distance, the arches of Wembley Stadium are lit by this low, closing screen light. Everyone is here now. T2 featuring Jodie coming up from the ground, all the stars bursting out. And listen, there are so many things I used to believe and so many things I wanted to make true, but every word of it was said into a phone, and the phone was thrown into a pond, and the pond was cordoned off with tape in a park, and the park has gone back inside the words to sleep in them between their layers. Let it go. Sweet dreams. We can speak on the phone. Everything will be its opposite. Our beliefs are entirely unharmed. I won't tell you where they are. All these surprising moments of clarity. So many things. Half life. And every morning I get up and inject the state into my arm and listen to the children singing in the nursery. The world is only 10 years old. When the youth centres reopen, the emptiness inside them falls in the sea at 100 miles an hour. We're its ceiling. And we have everything to live for, 100 wild tubes from the mouth, the ears, and the anus. As the brains walk through the heart's snow, theme parks burn to the ground at 100 miles distance. All interior life at 100 miles an hour. And every morning I get up, their voices sound a little bit deeper.
Pippi Longstocking never watches the news. Your morning slurp, the implication of policy, skimming knocked across your back, counting 1, 2, 3 on the dock of the bay. Another hairband lost to the ravages of time and pockets. Of it, I think nothing, only it would be good to get out of here for the day and leave it down, my shoulders are cold. I always wanted dimples and or freckles and or a sunny disposition, but I am allergic to apples, and that makes it harder to spend time outside, clambering and sitting like a tomboy heroine, pretending I could survive up there, skinning my knees in the name of not being a girl and our pirate kingdom. My throat constricts just tasting what that might have been like if I could have stayed longer than 10 minutes without reapplying. You spend half the time wondering if all this is happening because you opened the crisp packet the wrong way up when you were 10, but the rest of the time is spent in deep meditation. It is a privilege to make tea for you and to know how I almost want to apologize every time a new synapse is fired in my name. It isn't worth it. I burrow in the soil knowing the Wi-Fi can't reach me down here. Nobody acknowledges me but the worms, and I can't tell when they do it. Solidarity with precarious workers, solidarity with precarious rainforests, solidarity with this, the precarious grip on life itself. It is a labour and a joy to see the sun. I take thee in verbose analysis to be my trip to the shops on a cold spring day. We are the best part of a fab ice lolly, the ensuing debate. Remember when we all held hands and won a Hugo Award? It would be something to tell the grandchildren about, if not for everything that is. This one, I gave a stupid name and I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna keep the poem. Every day will feel like a trial run until the boulder finally catches up. So I will loudly repeat that Leviticus is the sexiest book in the Bible until the ground is whipped from beneath my feet like I am a laid table, finished with but fun. It is a shame that the party is cancelled because roommates, when Death got all dressed up for the occasion, brought their macro lens and was going to get all up in their cells, you know? Instead, I'm on the station platform like I always am in poetry, and your donations could help people like Angela. So, flash of one day I'm going to live in a nice flat with hardwood floors and a dog and you will still be dead. But I'm happy for Angela, I think, and people like her. On World Leaf Day, we all thought about leaves, stalks leaning towards the state. So very haphazard looking, we tried to turn them towards the sun, but they winced, crying out for another chance to decide something. Some of their stems touched, and who am I to bend their arc or look out the window? All commas are fetal now, and every time you delete one, I see it in track changes and whisper, murderer. It is much easier this way, like a geyser of inconsistent temperature, an occasional card with yay printed on the front, accidentally stumbling across the blog of a friend of a dead not friend but distant comrade, and the tendrils of connection stiffen and crack like old foam. I fuck up into the atmosphere, hopeful, cat on the balcony, crooning. No, I will not buy your cassette tape on the merch desk, but I will wind it for you with a ballpoint pen because I like the sound. This one never had a name. Or it's not been named yet. I don't remember when I wrote this. Without wishing to narrate or react, there is only avoidance, and that is a gauche centerpiece for a caustic table, but so is this crinoline, sour clasp of hand to mouth, fingers to tongue, and pull. That's good. Just one more time for me before we collect up all this obviousness from the trod ground like complete twats and trade it back at the bar for petty cash to do our bit and look bad doing it. But imagine Sharpie whiskers, bodily violation, a whole train carriage, a whole tub of marshmallows in the bath and bloating, a whole stomach emptied into a Wendy house, a whole life through a scanner darkly, redly. If there is any avoidance, then it all becomes very sign my yearbook, tell me everything we never said and won't on a coming back to town someday because we were of course the kind of people who move away. Or that might be better still than this, to display it on a page. This is happening and I don't want to talk about it, but I am. Well, that's just embarrassing, and it could be any number of things. That's the trick. Confession let out of its box, ball under cup, under cup, under cup. No admiration for the one who saw it move because they had nothing better to do. Well, neither do I, but I pretend to look away. It's only polite. Body quadratics. Sleeping in, but waking into an immediate set of equations in need of balancing before I start on figuring out the half-life of each bath bomb, so that I might take infinite baths and never have smooth fingers again. But I'm losing all my patience for metaphor. I only mean to say that I'll miss you, that this is not like loss, only loss is, but I think I'll break poetry. Steeping feelings like tea, like mathematics, like figuring out the marginal utility of my emotions, like how many muscles in a smile, how many muscles in a frown, how many muscles I want to use today in total, and just go from there. Starting off by recycling batteries at the battery recycling point at the supermarket where I can do absolutely everything. Here, let me do absolutely everything, and then I'll be jumping off the back of a trolley and careering off the pavement, off a career, offside, going off on one, my fridge is empty, or my fridge is full, but it's so empty, going full metaphor ahead again, and I'll text you instead. We are all just rain on a glass roof, and we're all just trying to get to sleep under the sound of ourselves. But you respond with a camel emoji, and I know exactly what you mean. Can we queer the structure of the house, please? I want to be in a door and a jar both at once, more than the sum of my parts, but less than 6, and smaller than a toaster if we're playing that game. See, I think we are. Animal, vegetable, mineral. coffee shop, corner shop, campus shop, bath bomb, half a bath bomb, half of that bath bomb, taking my trolley off road and trying to look slick about it, just trying to be my groceries today. So could you tick me off the list? Could you tuck me in? Balance this last one for me, spread yourself out on the sheets and remember to save. In summary, we do not have the necessary qualifications for sunblock, 10 tattoo needles masquerading as one, perambulating cool across the back, a nice pair of woolen socks and a floor to slip over, to allow oneself the time to unslip and not feel like slippage in itself. So apply to be a copywriter for blockchain, seems a scam to become a snake tracking its own metadata movements through the subway system where nobody has to pay and everything is beautiful. I am my own black box. This process is dark and glittering. Microchipped and sicking up the last of it, the paid for, the direct to, the scheduled on, a chunk rubbed against the gullet, lactose light but on its way, and I can't wait to fry it up on the pavement like it's the hottest summer in living unmemory, and I can wear my tiny shorts, completely qualified but never needing to finish. I'm going to read one more, and there's a couple of bonus poems on the Google Doc, so you can have those for free. Okay, this I wrote, see, time has lost all meaning. I think I wrote this last year for the Hive, for the 87. It could have been any time. It's called Minor Concerns Addressed to the Spacecraft. And it's a little bit longer. When you appeared, I was in my pajamas, devastated once again, looking for an empty field to scream in so nobody would come to my rescue, so I could have my feelings. Instead, I was disturbed, and I don't care if you're very exciting, excessively limbed. I can clamber strangely too. Now that you're here, you have to listen. It is as if we were on a pirate ship with 100 planks, walking them all just blistering, tell you about it later. I would topple if I knew there was a new board game over there underneath or a fresh vegetable. We all have memories of places we've never been. You can call it Orientalism or deja vu or whining, but I remember you like a dream before I greet you like a handshake. It's in all the movies. We both are, some of us. The usual crowd, we were all weighing up someone's worth by whether they had a spice rack or a spice cupboard. Meanwhile, there was a meteor shower or a magician or a firefly. Like it was not his relationship to the means of production, but the exact twist of his smile. We just knew the meteors just fell. That summer, everything was made out of chiffon, as an assault to armpits everywhere, and those operating the machines who also have armpits. I'll add it to the reading list. Sometimes it feels like a conversation starter, networking upstairs in a bookshop, just to throw over the sheets and be that every day I discover new implements. I check the French Republican calendar so I know what to celebrate, but you want me to toast myself for managing it. I would rather stand in the corner texting her I hate this and would rather be cooking chili with you. And wait, there is lint in my belly button again. Can you help me pick it out? I would rather not. Oh, for once in my life, an arrangement of gentle fingers, a bouquet of everything, a paddling pool deep enough, a rubber tree staying as is, those high apple pie in the sky hopes dashed, or just magnify those ants for hours. We can do without latex, I'm sure. If you could make the album of the year into a sex toy, that would be good. I wish the woods were bigger, but I am happy they are there at all. But I wish they were bigger. The summer of fuck lawns can wait like a garden gate pun, but it can't wait much longer. Last year, when we salted some broccoli heavily and the smoke settled on our knees, but I couldn't care less about Horkheimer right then. I only wanted to play it all again before you had to catch the train to work, and I had to cancel therapy, but don't tell me that, drifting on determination and delusion. Like, let's go to Canada, let's go to Scotland, let's go disregard everyone, let's go tomorrow. I am so angry, you are so right all the time. You're some wild garlic and I don't know how to recognize you, but I know you're really great because everyone says so. And nothing ever happened because nobody ever mentions it. I want you to backdrop me, a smile against a tree, herring goal yet to steal, feeding hand yet to be bitten, still in the infant stages of analysis. How do I best hold you? How do I best hold my ground? Meanwhile, she only went and got kettled again. It is the same in every clef. Sleep be with me. And also your breathing sounds, like a podcast, but real. I remember his house, all the clocks were set to 4:20. We are all noobs here. I choked on it. Join my guild. I'll explain everything. Just come here. When you first arrived, I thought you were an omen, but now I see you're really fucking tired. I'd offer you my hand, but I'm double wielding. Just reach into my pocket, take whatever's there. I don't remember, but it can't be worth more than the rolling of a wrist. Held. Anyway, sometimes my tongue just aches, so I request that nobody wear boots around me for their own safety in case of emergency, smash my face in for justice, I'll write a good piece and forfeit 20% to a charity of your choosing. This is, I think, the right way to be, or at least the right hat to wear, the right way to wear it. I'm very new here. I want to step inside. I want to feel the beam of light. I want to carry no belongings. I want to have a field day. I'm obsessed. I'm convinced. I'm reckoning with. I am saying I am suddenly realizing. Do you understand? Thank you very much. And thank you, Danny. And I'm looking forward to hearing everyone else.
So I'm going to read from three things. The first thing I'm going to read from is this pamphlet that Ian Heames made. These pamphlets you might know about. I'm just going to read one of the of the 18, I think, little paragraphs. It's an essay called Notes on the Experimental Proletarian Tragic. It's a kind of, it's kind of poetics text, I guess. So I'm going to read that. And then I'm going to read from Young Americans, which is this book that I wrote ages ago that Gizam Mossadegh of Banaras Press is going to publish this year. A lot of you know this text because it's been in the mix for a long time. But I'm going to give everyone else who doesn't know it the chance to hear a good bit of it tonight. And then I'm going to just read one tiny paragraph from the third event to remind you, or to see the through line, I guess. So that's the program. All right, let's get started. The reciprocity between the subjection of a marginal people and the subjection of a marginal landscape to a hierarchy of forces producing catastrophe is the content of the experimental proletarian tragic form. But if our social worlds are built in the margins of theirs, where does their world end and ours begin? According to certain notions, the poète maudit practices a reversal of hegemonic social norms, glorifying evil in the place of the good, the grotesque in the place of beauty, deception in the place of truth. In this reading, the Baroque communicant would, through a wholly legible series of transgressions, make of proletarian tragic feeling a mirror image of bourgeois morality. Because transgression belongs to and is dictated by their social codes and not ours, the simple reversal of social norms entails opposing the surface of one limited music to another darker surface. The characters of Faulkner's epic make a habitat of a miserable reality, adding to it the torment that deepens this misery and confers a grandeur upon it. Our maleficent grandeur is not a negative imitation of their benevolent grandeur. The conversion of sickness, toil, and danger into a new version of the good, the beautiful, and the true, reliant on their understanding of evil, ugliness, and betrayal, is not the goal of tragedy. The goal of tragedy is to engender a sound within or beneath the sheer tremendous tidal wave of desperate living, and through it to investigate the conditions of possibility for an entirely different human adventure. Young Americans. As if something broke through the academic sadness, mastering do as weak messianic things, germane and lowly and partisan, words with knobby meanings leaving now forever separate, these little Goethes and their parochial ethos, the ruse of which has been clarified through the non-existence of love in acts. In the twilight of this sequence, I am speaking to the anarchists, ever rehearsing the discipline of their bodies in collective and spiritual enunciations. They sing barricades in the morning and have not grown from this worship of danger, importance, secrecy. I am asking, what is it you mean by total freedom? I don't know yet what I'm willing to do for it. I don't know what will happen now. Some women spit blood, pick bone, grow cautious. I commenced to make that which was not avenged apparent. You will say perhaps that it is not worth your getting involved in. In that case, I can say the same. I do have my underground. I know this too is poetry, but it will not be lacunary in judgment. Issue one false night, a substrate, and cultivate a sensitivity to barrage. Pardon the trivial and mend weak light by comfort in decreasing, by casuistry. Let it pass in bursts like bursts of music until there is some quiet after. But don't humiliate truth by soaking it in the conspicuous beauty of all these dying materials. I had to tell myself that. The central image is the white Corolla with the matte black left side panel, Wallace's. At night, we drive through quiet streets, each with a pack of artillery shells, mortars, and light them from the car seat, tossing them up into the street behind us, and watch them falling, then bouncing, sometimes twice. Just at eye level, they detonate, forcing peals of color and heat, so final. And one time, Lee Parrott hit the rim of the window twice before his exploded, burning the upholstery, his backside. I remember him saying, "Can someone just give me a fucking cigarette?" We could spend whole nights driving through the open, no seams to cut against, just for the feeling of taking these explosives to the stupid stillness of everything, and how this game we played with the nights we lived through was a sign, the relevancy of which continues to descend on me. Because in those days, our boys, the boys that were a part of me, of my life, were the ones who went to slaughter and be slaughtered, the smallest, most forgettable generation of us. Or who came back from the war, like Paul Hidalgo, and drove his red Chevy truck one too many times into the cane, and was chased by state troopers and dogs barefoot through it, his name tattooed across his back. And because nothing else took place besides being made for the war or being broken by it later, or being made for someone who's made for the war or who comes back mangled by it later. It's as if the lengths we went to make anything else happen conditioned us to fear little more than death, and death too seemed worth that, or at least was common enough. There was an incubation. After the storm, I strayed, grace favored over decay. But those dreams of drowning blue-lipped in the flooded street, en Dauphine or Saint-Philippe, I was always with a grip of dikes in the subtropic wedding of night. That was Ursuline, where the nuns lived. I was a tatter in a boat. Please not now, I'm building a prayer to live in against this white portability. To be more than a gamine in exile identified with Platonic concepts, predicated on mistaken blessedness. Something indecent about this story of young Americans set to burning in a field of sleeping cows. We cradled shotguns near the dredging as light fails to be tense and unconfessing. We engage with the reality it produces in order to name. Evangeline, a parish of. Given is what we mean to say in the proletarian night, although often only a sigh. As for what we split, gamble, and suffer by crease of lip, no made-up country to be loosed unto. And in the way she wanders, things are hotly folded, hero-hearted. Even in white surrenders, they do not covet me or take and return me. All tracks back as scrap for the war, but would sell for locomotion some tender things to the crippled machinist. So from wing to reddening where Evangeline wanders toward a louder love, as I toward and offer mercy sung like something sleeping stung and swell as with, and am as if, a sundering. And by caught in the longer legs of someone's Catholic daughter, I mean I loved her, or rather Latin water too, and in tall grasses, in the dark field lit by cattle belly, and so went soundly soundless as all my losses were mostly terrestrial. Might wait for words to say what of your brother's body is left. But the cane grows, with or without the fragile world of civil loves. What we live among, the bagasse, blue ribbon, purple, the ornamentals, a vague series. What there is only image for. What though lying you swore you need not prove to anyone. Ever sub winter. These Molina lyrics, the way I wanted my poems to move like them. Dreer Street in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So close to the big river are organs and humors adolescing there. Cocaine as deep background, but later, of Wallace playing fame in a rabbit coat. And Bennett would say, I believe every woman has made up her mind to win. But how much can any of us win? Heaven knows I'd have taken anything. Near the refinery at the bottleneck, where often Devon was detained by functionaries, depositing his name into a bank of names where marsh becomes golf, one's inability to locate the particularity of desire. To live in the first century of these bodies, supernumerary, nuclear, where epic feeling surges against the funereal, its trash and manias, its night for day. Je ne laisserai pas mon enfant s'échapper, I said. Waking up then from a dream of her former life in the country where God lives. Waking now from the crime of settling a city, how the song of it is coming through, clear and absolute. The third event. Out in the world, empathic limitation structures the heart. The way sound and shadow structure eternality, the way color structures attention and accident. Is adaptation a value for those who happen to possess it? For whom is the deep a house? The third event, tropicalist and prehistorical, dwells in the Voilerie, mending veils by day, tearing veils by night, eager to portend through over-angelness a way out of this disaster ambiance. The nearest utopia is overgrown with bromeliads and a metaphysics of opaque essences. From its highest point, one can watch principalities conspiratorially flooded and sunk. Terrorized by the gaudy insurances of the elite, those born in the common colony use the past as a serum to treat, often unsuccessfully, transcendental sicknesses. Using the jingle, but is modernity's pursuit properly sensuous? The past was peddled in snake milk to the populace. Atlanteans reflecting later on this period have said, we felt the great past might mend a little if we bowed low enough, if we succumbed and gave homage. But the non-Atlantean dead too have committed some prolix portion of the evil of this night, owing no less to their notoriously toothless intercontinentalism. Naively, these claim that if the Atlanteans wish for theirs to no longer be a secret out of the past, they should simply resurrect it with a few ethnic songs and dances or little spell sacks of pepper and moss. Made of exterior calm despite the misery of planets, the third event practices the circumvention of elegiac existence, anticipating the arrival of a placeless energy. For now, the chicanery of rulers is a practice of ambiguation realized in burnings and revivals. Proclaiming that the pure crest of the idea ruins everything, they begin their seances by writing in the book of machinations that all shall be subdued in the common sorrow. They're involved in the integrity of farcical deadening and the ritual transformation of feeding blooms with rust. They commence to moaning in strange liquid tones, intoning that the territory of the sea, their domain, is set to increasing. They agree that the beliefs of the mass are like weather, but forced through uncertainly, such that their dispossession must become arrow-like. They make sacrifice to the serial opacity of the hardcore conduit, regaling in the people's unbearable silence and fascination, held dihedral through throng and technique and private scandal. Their sessions invoke Our Lady of the wrought iron cemetery ornaments, Our Lady of the unliberated capitals of suspect progress, Our Lady of the no less ridiculous sexual arithmetic, Our Lady of the hegemony of the limited fantasies of skin, Our Lady of the teeth of the night in the mouths of the fishermen, Our Lady of the incomplete spirits of martial law deployments, Our Lady of the illegitimacy of non-market mediation, Our Lady of the little wars and little military exercises, Our Lady of the righteousness of corruptible love, Our Lady of the zombified genealogy of guerrilla science, Our Lady of the tomorrows that sing in subprime keys, Our Lady of the relentless whiteness of doom's music, Our Lady of the dull machetes of the deltaic populations, Our Lady of the bad factories of indisputable goodness, Our Lady of the revolt as a clumsy thief in the night. They permit the ascension of a few chosen peasants, full of deeds but not thoughts, picked from among those who put small strokes of blood on the ochre, committing themselves to the enormous bliss of Atlantean death. They despise the scythers who receive the children of the workers blue in the gaslight. They have observed beggars full in their midst, wondering why these do not take them by the throat or set fire to their houses, but wander instead through burnt cane, muttering, "There ought to be magnolias somewhere in this dusk."
Kang. Whilst young soul, the closed room, dolor spat apart. I wait, can see rivets, nests rising, air cold in late summer graphite. I can smell the room closed out, leaving you somewhere agape, hand fast. And I can smell the cold air, the damp sky is toothless, the plane ascends when I go from my family, closed words, abundant, less. Became less, roots smelt the cypress fags, we rise in grass and walk for miles. Formal debasement come, close a Kang, this head reeks, always notify the passer if it's passing. All up to water's top. Cool. I don't know. This is a bit of a local dedication, but there's been like a huge split in the sort of radical movement in East Sussex recently, starting with Lewis Maoist Action, who've now split. There are some split-off groups, the University of Sussex Society for Juche with high Tory characteristics, and the Kingston and Swanborough Centre for Xi Jinping Thought, and also Lewis and District, Naxalite and Hox Highest cadres. And so I kind of want to dedicate the rest of this reading to everyone who was killed in the recent formation of the Sussex University and Falmer Stamner Park demilitarised zone after the missile crisis. And so for that reason, I'm going to read some poems by Alfred Starr Hamilton, who's this fella, who I love. And yeah, I just wanted to read some of his poems quickly, and then I'm going to read a new poem of mine. And yeah, this is to you all. Yeah, these poems are kind of hard to read. Virginia Beach. I think of the tug of the tides. I think of the tug of the tides on the shoreline. I think of the tug of the tides on Virginia Beach. I think it tugs at the pearly gates. I think it tugs on the seaweed. I think it explains a little boy's hair. I think it explains a little boy's tears. I think it explains a little boy's whereabouts. I think it explains the soul. Glad tidings. I think there is a mermaid in the water. I think it tugs on the pulse. I think it tugs on the pulsations. I think it sings in the azure. I think it sings in the breezes. I think it sings in the branches. I think it sings in the trees. I think it sings in the leaves. I think it sings in the seaweed. I think it sings in the sky above. I think it sings rockabye baby in the treetop. I think it sings for a fair day. I think it sings for a boy who is going to go to the fairy world. I think it sings for the poet laureate. I think it sings for a boy who is going to wear long hair. I think it sings glad tidings. I think it sings of the soul. Stars. I know of the stars on the back of a butterfly. I know of the stars there are in the universe. I know of paradise. I know of fairyland. I know of the dreams. I know of the soul. Title unintelligible. I think of the sunlight peeping through our windows. I think of the sunlight peeping through the NH countryside. I think of the Colonel is amazed. I think we are all amazed. I think Hiawatha is doing his long hair this morning. I think of touching one of these beautiful NH lakes. I think of first touching sunlight. I think of first touching a cloud. I think of first touching the soul. The Cane Mutiny. I'm around differently. I'm around a woman who is showing them herself. I thought of showing them myself. I thought it needed to be admired. I thought it needed to be admired differently. I thought I admired myself. I thought I did my long hair in bows. I thought I admired my long hair. I thought I explained my whereabouts. I thought I explained my full soul. I thought I explained my full adventure. Two more of these. Sunburst. I was urged. I couldn't say no. I didn't say no. It was stronger than myself. I was going to do what girls do. I was going to be a beautiful nurse. I flowed with the sunburst on the classroom window. I tied a ribbon in my long brown hair. I began my life's ambition. I began my soul. Free. I dared. I dared to go further. I dared to go fuller. I dared to go everywhere. I dared the four winds. I dared to do what girls do. I dared to wear my hair long all over the place. I dared joy. I dared happiness. I dared to be free. I dared my own soul. Yeah, that's Alfred Starr Hamilton. You should get hold of this book if you can. It's a kind of strange book. He wrote so many poems. He wrote like loads of poems every day, and he sent like 40 poems every single month to this one publication who mostly just threw them in the bin, and occasionally he'd try and get the publication arrested for not publishing his poems, which is an amazing thing to do, to be honest. Like there's a whole collection of his letters to the police which are also really good. Okay, this is brand new, as in I wrote it yesterday and a tiny bit today, and I haven't edited it at all. It doesn't have a name yet. This may be its only outing, or I may like it. It's got an epigraph though, from Sean Bonney's poem, Lamentation. The epigraph is this: a snare is come among us. There are none to comfort us. There's pain everywhere, hangs in the sky. That patent ladder clawed to an air, hiding out of sight. All this gabber slighted, the ear turns, wretched, pickling shells to lift to hear, static warbles, pain turns soft. Your those very helping, each so helped in turn, to which means swallows down their charity, tins tring out through the long dark nights that never end. Spittoon, what falls off the starling shreds, cloud, gristle, knell, the bilge pump, coughing, goose. But you have no authority here, just tube to shriek to the boiler rooms, as if its sleep is by this design snaffled, eaten, picked over, relic blissful, not here, never half, not return, gone, opened like cartilage, slung in torrid old sky. Different flats to its distress over. Californian, what are you doing? Where are the jet skis? Mottled slabs in ink carved down to a new hung deep, the cauterized city spreads where love cannot take root. Imprints on glass, bam. Watchtower, all but stolen in pressure, returns to hum, shut the doors, that dreaming. What its being hung was. Reverie never as once but set, scatter the teeth, cancelled to detonate, tongue nearby to drag living fruits. The way women were flung into cellars of towers, you live there in teeth that fly out, dirty the choiceless rain, the multi-level anthem, stick it. A man on a bicycle, his light frame listing, eyes glow in clanging youth, pale, speaks to the sheltering queue that Jesus love it overflows for you. Remember the Jesus army, he was a bit like that, he was so beautiful. All the pressure of this new world falling away, but anyway, stick him. He was, sweetly sung the sky, bound by incredible promise. It was real. So what life springs, unallowance, silver and coins and stomping the ashes, shifts, aches into the floor line, grasps at the water, latitude, measles. A youth volunteer, make they like them eyes like that one, good eyes, new eyes, young eyes, one eyes, they need her pinched, wants everything corrected, can't think, reared beyond the walls of its patented delay. The hills here are wretched, leaking, leaker, device shutdown, war. Here are your blankets, I came for weapons. The sky spilled, and in my confession, sagacity, let it be known, I have behaved like the vilest of dogs, beautiful jade creatures, our unit, in a layer of rotten leaves, lurking in the gloom of the woodland. The only rebound, I did what I did, hissing, because I wounded the captain, the most vile adapter. The west of my criticisms heavy on shreds. The air cries, fury cries, wool cries. Lays down the sticky spirals, demolishing the form of proceeds to center. I have asked for silence. Someone goes out in a hidden room. She weeps bitterly in the night. She sheds tears on her cheeks. Yet among all her lovers, there is no one who comforts her. The evening is trampled away. For speaking into the life I lie awake, vomit for you again. I have spent hundreds of hours like this, on the freezing floor, pulling hairs from my stomach. For I sent you out with sorrow and weeping. Tell me a signal to get dark, building in summer, sinking, the same again and again. It's a quote from one of Danny's poems. Nothing is different now than it was 15 minutes, an hour ago. The situation is the same. The world is the same. Nothing has changed. I wish I knew the regiment of anger, too soft to tiptoe on point through the air. It is good you cannot hear. It is wrong. Spring Gardens substation. There's some kind of demon clawing onto your back like a bleach blitz devouring fatberg. There's some kind of lost reason, lost choking person lays open my eyes with its paws and breathes them. We are all zero in common neck holes. The head is stuck in the substation, humming. Your home is near there. I speak to it, lostly, because of the choking and swallowing. Come to the windows, vanish, turn around, scream inside the room, turns to fury, a silent ball drifting out to sea. Come, stick out the windows. Bodies, crisis, perimeter. There are no more signs. Law still and hates your sluggish death, captured and canned. Sparrow, beauty, all around the world. I am no more inert than you, pickled. See this grave in the bright helm. There once was a church, graves in rows. Now they are piled in the car park against the outer walls. Needles all over the floor. Tallulah was there, swallows life. Everything as it was in the beginning is now and ever shall be. Stops. It's not that beauty had finished. Too bitter, bitter reaction. On the steerage deck, there are bunks in lines. Larry is lying on the floor, covered in burning chemicals. It is shit being Larry. It is shit working a 70-hour week when your brain is turning itself over and over with cuts all around your hands. You feel like that, Captain, my mistress, Ham. There's nothing to do but the dark. A prize-winning bar train in a hazmat suit is coming to stitch up your toes. Swallows sickle clouds apart, red with you, cloaking, anger, right. Is this rift bloodening? Lurk into face. How we glitter, how trees would shoot by our hands, clutching, our tongues wrapping, snared in a trick ladder, the substitution purrs in gullies and bulkheads, the precept to blot in a gas mask shape, finitude angles all of our blood. Complete, 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 complete pluvios, corrupted in gibbet, it stares in its face, it gloats in its hand, it shrieks in its fields. She was once oh so gentle and tender to smell at, now she eats flagpoles and swallows your legs. So there's this carpet of subterfuge moans. A pickling tyrant has ruined its heartbeat. Pigs. I have mastered the over chicken whip, not. They act like pigs, they do not work, they act like kids in the cultural reforms, fit the criteria themselves, die of tongues in the dark with moths on them, grits. It is a dream you've been sucked, propelled to sluice behind. Back catch, open whip, minority, front arm mount in outsent tactic. I've seen the gorset, smell it like balms and honeys. Let's swim and be held to our tummies and skirts. Let's pepper our hairpins with kisses, knots, samphire, grist, tangles, wet cat, sweet cat. It comes in angles, this dream, harder than fierce resolve to destroy each one of its empath and ears. My thoriac dip. Tallulah, what's keeping? The intense mental strain and activity of the work done by a pickpocket is evil for a moment. It's scary in here, and surely pass until my dying day, sir. Stick this vilest dog, put brains all out our heads. What they were doing was detestable to feedback, shame, recourse, have them all in the kang. It's good now. Bells fit round the necks. We can show the world the enemy faces, grinning, maniacs, spitting. Better the details are left unchanged. I never more will falter. Changes a radar station opened on the high trail, pink in deep 2 switch it, 103.5 megahertz. Stick it. But it's damaged. Look at their graves. Oh, you can see into. Can you see at this distant glimmer? Why don't they answer? The sky was empty. The days stretched in gay lapis blue. Why is there no law against smirking, machinery, lip salve, twitchers, chicken shops, wrong'uns, smirking, slouching, swimsuits with petticoats, clock time, unreasoned smirking, squatting blankets, citing phrases, SRT3, attitudes, drinking, making apology. See, law smiles down. Law is have a good day. It beds you too in syndicate. It loves the alone, makes you its premises, torn of a shoreline, erased, dropsy. Tallulah's ghost is okay. We're no good. It's stuck in the backdrop, mind noise, fighting. One of the crypts is kicked out, yawning. The gulf rendered to a hex margin, nails the internal world to a tree, shrieking. The screeds of its tongue to the sinking compartments. Denies lucidity, denies itself the light, shrieking, dangled like spiders in front of its face, tacked to the headpost, closed on neck. And this gag feels good. I'd welcome it for days, tried to speak with it. The world is laughing, my compressed tongue, shrieking. She went wild in the field like collapsed at indica. All the while, gravestones, lean-to, walls, needles, parked cars, baggies, piss, link, and own worthless feet, and its ears and its eyes go ribbon dead weights. Sugared, glued down. Ballade. There climbs wild her stasis. Oh, but they were not lovers. Damage hung out, losing miles apart, stir as fuck in the mangle they cooked up, grieving each other. The edge of the known world, he snarled. drips of cat pneumonia. Hot lava in blotches goes up, out in tut, stammers, and the weekend spiv piles in. Stick him. Day goes down in gold behind the pier. It is set as the pigeon it vomits from. The free wall shaggers sweat out their train collection. It's fluoride twilight. Rain tears birds to the hotspot. The substation chews on its brains till it's sleep. There's still a little light left in the sky. Thank you.
Falling spectral onto hues, spark and the tend of the south, hung on upon digitals. Slow scope gaining patient heat, generous spheres and the lands lie. Here in what sonics best spines we're on, scribbling fee lines and legs keeping. I want the space to fill out bones, pulse density to reeve through the body, lossless, a cheap fix to take one out of their self. Remember you better in exchange, coins low, light, lustre, skin as effort, pleasure, decor, lips stuck on these forms of being. Share this tide radial, builds such filth from us, arrests, concatenates, turns direct, attend from the flesh, vertical point joys. Frame share this tide radial ourselves in builds such filth from us, throws to olfactory and the air reeling, escapology turns vivid, direct, attend from the flesh, vertical point joys. And lines and legs. If I draw my eyes only to it, want the space to fill out bones back from the language to reeve through the body. Doors, an advertisement, a cheap fit twice to the point, to take one out of their score out the prying. Distant kept gaze demarcates. This is one of the dream poems that's in the Four Dreams Earthbound pamphlet, and it was also turned it into a collage kind of. I think at the start of lockdown it ended up as part of this Edward Morgan Centurion. The collage version is on Adjacent Pineapple, I think in color. I think it's like one of the few collages are made in color that I feel okay about. Tide drifts, found what cliffs, water, northern eye meditates. Road takes down as the land ends, dizzy off and barge. Strung senses out to jetty, vicular, tipped wings dive yellow on white. Gather on these, track out such orchestrations, assemble, gravitate in human fixtures as the light holds your lover's sound, vibrates low this room we arrive at, patient senses braced, wax and waning, North Sea drags monochrome, kind of tantalizing. Outcrop, gushing, strung senses out to jetty, in the vicular, context, tipped wings dive yellow and white, word offering, strung in senses out by to organs, jetty, vicular, surround, tipped wings dive yellow and voices white. Voices in own days, what friends known in ages kept this bay in perspective as optimism arrives, the length of our silvering, spin extremes, sunscreen and whiskey. Okay, so I'm going to read two sets of these niners. I think they're all fairly recent as far as time has passed. Of course, time's been piling up. And yes, I'm going to read, I think this is, I've also been thinking a lot about the order of these poems and trying to think through what the relationship with the order is. And quite often I was like shuffling them when I was reading them and kind of completely, mixing up the order. And now I'm kind of back into the like, what does the order do? How do different kind of elements of the poems get webbed together when I mix them up? So I'm going to read section 6, and I'm going to read some of section 7 and some other bits. We Creopolitan, our changing and relations, our senses of body, whispers, humming to no flesh, sensate taste salt weather cane, humidity woven through, displaced, to be anywhere here, or possible futures, undo logics of land, ed. A harmonic swells through the spatial torso and limbs, their context split off flesh, bring your needed self around its branching. What is humbled merely future source for or meaning, like vacuum dreaming, like alternate spectra are visible, dizzying gold flaked on sheets. Lockdown, vacuum, famine, derelictions, sanctions, engineered, cleared, the hands, mouth. Moonrise pulls out into us days, bare foliage scope. Prospect living Rui, nation in your ruling domicile. Infernos and housing washout lie comms junk, hunger sprawl. Sure, with your meager hoarded fragment of earth, gold, store your germs and spoils defended. From the right to roam, the decayed and undead. We declare centuries buckled in such violent, torn and shredded viral logic, its impossible defense. Hands shatter the perimeter. Glassed eyes, petty urban fractures asphalt and cobble, liquefied all days optics, thirsting on a scale over accumulate roofing, seekers of contained thought, engaged in tinnitus, visible horrors, dissolve synthetic pleasant. Streets speak plague history. Schema divesting black and brown, breath burnt, abandoned, nest synthetic pale on prey, screech bitter salvation prized. Light disdain call benevolent neolib tears on our cellular, carbon-based, carbon-torn, stones and plaster time contained to fail, continues its ordinary. Memories prescribed, and the theft of season, spread on capital, commodity, please, ed, days dregs in the social hierarchy, our deletions see cure, blinkered, lice orbital, teased and powered, reduced 100 years, you next blossom and fire, no outlier body which you speak. This, their war, absolute silence, no molecules vibrate, smeared newsprint zeros, no touch, our immiseration. Hands, fuck almost days, social hungering for scent, variation, plague dread, yet the rich seem to have forgotten how to die, beneath cobble cramped bones. Systematic denigrate breath, char, coal, golden, sick on quotidian, contiguous memories of your violence embedded, smoke screened, accumulation on crisis horror, iridescent thrown, earthen cuts to claim, to clear, flow flag blood, pure decay, remove how the earth is walked. Sanctions, engineered. Sensate taste salt weather fractures asphalt and cobble. Systematic denigrate breath, char, alternate spectra visible zeros, no touch. Powered, carbon-based, 100 years torn, it's impossible defense. Of all taken from bodies, our remaining hunger, and with it your price tags on sustenance. Delay payments, imaginary chains of power, purchase, what we call to abolish. We reassembled our affections and solidarities, our cracked efflorescent hands. On the stand, list your horrors, proclamations and divestments, pour blood from the crown and ideo, your archaic printed murders, bludgeoned civil lies to this day. Against the name of your inflictions, your rubble and basic hatred. Turn hands to gather, stolen our lives and back bodies. In nationhood, your reveries, 500 truncated years, we dined on stolen whiskey, tar ministerial bones, forced to find work, a rustic allegory, narrating cities and aggressions, light and false nature conditioned, cohered by skins, our separated, crashed, bred through dutiful, us assimilar, our transient preoccupy, remain awake, sign continue our bare hands in freezing. Rex talents glam our flakes, girl forget the legible, inclusive and undiminished, eating twice a day. Love we against the national interest. Sure, of these days all fact will be thrown scold nebula between the livid and liminal. Compress, sketch and sculpture tendons. What gives energetics to these? In the writhing accumulate, populate asset and fictions. And making the scope of labels, lines wayward, soar on no keys. Fray lines, scarce to our bodies, nutrition and psyches, decant glamour, oiled, isolate. Know this harshest winter forecast, ankled soft across no work longer. Our derelict arms sent medicinal, nutrient, gathered for bodies, wedge in your cycles precious of repetition. At these peaks in your history of reactions, skull pulse, in such total hostility, claw cult years bleached, amnesiac, a false imaginary, fragile tide incendiary, slice ceaseless, adds newsprint and telegrams, pockmarked, revolve, the spirit of blood, fibers, swell, Marxism, estuaries, translations, the stolen lit, riches. If all we have survived, frequencies embedded in the body, crack open our constituted streets, autonomy, stories, gentrification, citadels, resists. Sung the winter, caustic, Annabeth Ed, black eyes and woolmark. Sing how it weighs to hold against the basic synthesis of your day. Illegible tides we create years, queens and vaults, lines and neglected light fades, cranes, rustic metropolitan sense, allegories deceased. In sanctions, frequencies embedded, our derelict arms sensate taste salt weather, fractures asphalt and uncobble. Sure, yes. These days, democratic will be alternate spectrum zeros, no touch. Pour blood from the crown and arterial bones, forced to find impossible defense. Agenary, fragile tide.
This first one is called A Shark Comes to Dinner. Well, it's not a shark as such. More the nebbish simile Woody Allen used in Annie Hall, the one about how Marshall McLuhan has to keep moving forward to massage the message. Anyway, the dorsal fin is frantically stirring the pot, fretting that the lobsters, squash and carrots haven't been chopped finely enough according to the proto-hipster aesthetic because, would you credit it, him with the teeth is afraid to bleed. Potluck kinfolk style, she'd said, and he'd flapped a happy yes, not knowing what 2 out of those 3 words meant. But hey, what did it matter? He'd seen enough master chefs to know you just had to do a journey, a chocolate fondant, and some alpine microherbs, then your life changed. Imagine the shock when he discovered that an induction hob could be as dangerous as a pedestal. And she wasn't going to undo her apron for any old Jawsy come lately, brandishing Elizabeth David's come hither Mediterranean words. Calm, she commanded, as she swept him onto the table and bade him wait upon her homemade pastrami. He looked over and tried to drool attractively. You've never seen a mammal wish so fervently to tell Linnaeus to stuff himself, become a slice of rye bread, gherkins, English mustard on the side. I should, well, I confess to the fact that when I'm angry, I tend to rhyme, which explains this next one. It's called I Stayed Alert. I stayed alert in the queue for a shop. I stayed alert when the tracing app did not. I stayed alert playing the social distance game. I stayed alert for my tired of nudging blame. I stayed alert in my isolation bubble. I stayed alert when handshakes were not trouble. I stayed alert for the football-sized virus. I stayed alert thanks to my ever-twitching sinus. I stayed alert for the tapered end of furlough. I stayed alert for getting back to normal. I stayed alert for my lungs being perturbed. I stayed alert for being part of the herd. I stayed alert to be necessarily infected. I stayed alert, so why do I regret it? I stayed alert and R0 still expands. I stayed alert and yes, I'm washing my hands. I stayed alert through shit karaoke Churchill. I stayed alert, but I can't spot the invisible. I stayed alert like the government said. I stayed alert, and yet here's the excess dead. This next one is called Dear Suburbs, More Pavements, Please. And it has an epigram from an ad by the British Freehold Land Company from sometime in the 1920s. And it says, try to own a suburban home. It will make you a better citizen and help your family. 1. Space. Yes, that was the thing. Until it turned out that connections mattered much more. 2. I used to say, oh, England, with your green and fenestrated suburbs, tell me about beauty, about how to live. I never got a reply. 3. You know how people dream of Vienna at the turn of the 20th century, wishing they could have been there too? There is only one suburban equivalent, the Bromley contingent, and they didn't stay. 4. If you fill them with too much hope, these houses rip themselves apart. 5. All because we can't let go of our grandparents' villages. 6. If architects are gods, what are those that plan suburbs? Apprentice Lucifers, perhaps. 7. An incantation I was taught to say, wide verges 3 times, and a magic chariot will come, take you away to the city. 8. She looked out of place in Zone 5, spike heels, black suit. How had she fallen in love with a mark like him from a place like here? I mean, she said that's why she didn't choose me. 9. I didn't even think about putting the word community into this poem until someone told me it would be offensive if I didn't. 10. Forgive me for saying this, but these blurred grounds never were the moral high grounds as well. 11. Most of us live there. I've never met anyone who said they wanted to. 12. The sprawl of ambition, the sprawl of envy, the sprawl of love. 13. You know it was all to flog train journeys, right? Russ in herb, just another sales pitch. 14. Your eyes are always somewhere else. 'And from suburban London of the 1920s to suburban Netherlands of the 1930s, late 1930s. And it features a German word, Gedankensplitter, which is a collection of aphorisms. The poem is called Matchstick Empire, and it features another epigram, this time from Wilhelm II, who, upon entering exile in 1918, he said, "So, what do you say? Now give me a nice cup of hot, good, real English tea." He had followed the laws of expansion in the manner of his tippling grandmother, but alas, ended up so unworthy a sovereign that he could only wear blue serge suits, Loden capes, and a hunting hat, though he couldn't shoot anymore, nor ride, just walk, feed the ducks, and cut down trees, 20,000 by his 70th birthday. He joked this harvest was the only Gedankensplitter his people would listen to now. The logs went to the faithful poor, the only retinue left, or became matchsticks given to the curious, with no mention made of the fire passing between empty hands. And this is the most recent one from last month. It's called Enter the Theologians. The wild, unsettled sound of these thin in-between days. There is no switch to throw the line back, just a cut, a cut, a cut again, until the edge of what you can see starts to break down. Enter the theologians, telling you, in these fuzzy moments is where you discover the space to dispute, to revel, to reveal, to party, play, love, to link yourself to the best of yourself, to bask in a band of glory you deserve. This next one was translated into Italian last month, and I do wish I could read Italian because, my God, it would sound better in Italian than it does in English, but I leave that to you to judge. It's called Broken Pixels. Today, I am living in someone else's metaphor for the future. A screen that seizes, freezes in its promise of touch. Haptic is to help as waving is to drowning. You in the UX is just a run of broken pixels, a glittering spectrum, fritzing my status update. One of the things I found odd about lockdown, well, not odd, is what's ended up soothing and being a form of comfort over the last year. Hooray, year. And it's been reading about minor league baseball in the States. Don't ask me why. The cat pays some homage to that tonight as well. But yeah, I guess it's the air of endless futility and endless grind as you hope that you can play your way into what they call the show, but more often than not, you can't. That sense is channeled through this poem. It's called The Minor Leagues. Am I going up or going the other way? I can't recall, but I was told I was due a spell in the minor leagues. And who am I to argue with manager, coach, God? I mean, have you seen the size of the wad of chewing tobacco he just spat at my head? So here I am on deck, next up for the Utopia Mason Jars on Cinco de Mayo, the Utopia Trapped Bananas. And I have been hitting 0.197 all season. Because what are you going to do when all you can manage to connect with when you swing are the ghosts you carry to bed with you every night? The ones who claim they'll make it better the way bullies do, silkily, sullenly. I am so over it now. Just strike me out, damn it, so I can be farmed away to the next affiliate, the checks notes, Treacle Town, shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Maybe I'll stick there for once. And maybe that'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm just going to run straight into this. It's an excerpt from Saffron Jack, long narrative poem, which is the tall tale of an avatar of me who decides that in response to life not working out quite how he wants, he runs off to a war zone to start his own country and declare himself king. And we join him in the action when he's recounting to us how the idea emerged. 58. With nothing else to do but look out at the wall holding back the sea, you drifted. 58.1. You drifted to being younger. 58.1.1. Bank holidays at home, the rain, the inside, the couch, in front of the TV. 58.1.1.1. Hoping that instead of the Bond, whatever was left over in Disney's cupboard, there would actually be something else on. 58.1.1.2. Something interesting, something different. 58.2. And this one time there was. 59. A bang on the TV, a splutter into life, and then on it. 59.1. The man who would be king. 60. For it's a nation I shall make of them, with a flag and an anthem and a standing army. I'll treat with the viceroy on equal terms, and other kings and princes. And when I've accomplished what I set out to do, I'll stand one day before the Queen, not kneel, mind you, but stand like an equal. And she'll say, I'd like you to accept the Order of the Garter as a mark of my esteem, cousin. And she'll pin it on me herself. Oh, it's big. It's big, I tell you. 61. A jolly in the subcontinent. 61.1. When the subcontinent was ours. 61.2. No, theirs. 61.2.1. To be jollied. 62. Two mad dog Englishmen, short on high Victorian imperial boredom, long on chutzpah and capers, 62.1. Smuggle some guns into some country, 62.1.1. The Kafiristan job, 62.2. Then some cunning, some chance, some shooting, 62.3. And one of them ends up running the show, 62.4. The locals reckon he's the son, and they all start bowing down to him, 62.4.1. Just like that. 63. And you thought, wouldn't that be bloody cool? Well, not just to be Sean Connery, that obviously would be bloody cool, but, you know, it'd also be cool just to control somewhere, especially as somewhere when you've felt that you've never fitted in wherever the where is you're from. And then have loads of people suddenly decide that, yes, despite the fact that you look different, sound different, talk different, and scare them with your guns and what have you, still, you're a better bet than the current fat nabob they have, who goes around taking their bread from them, their grain from them, their money from them, taking their wives and daughters from them whenever he fancies, with only a little bit of prompting and cajoling, a twinkling smile or two, which they understand even if they don't understand what the smile is saying. They take that and the guns and the weapons and the drill and the tactics and the confidence you've given them, and they surround the Fat Nabob's palace in a ring of chanting, heaving, determined bodies, which won't shift. And if he tried to sneak through, he'd get sucked into a maw of flesh, like being sucked into a whirlpool. So the Nabob's got no other choice but to give in and throw his hands up, throw his crown up, his queen up. And when he looks round at who to give them to, so he isn't torn into pieces the size of stamps with his fat head on them, and the crowd are growling and shuffling and getting ready to start pitching sharp things at him, it's only when he looks at you with the crown in one hand, an imploring gesture being made by the other, and his eyes are watery and pleading and hopeful and hopeless and scared, and the crowd suddenly hush as they see where he's looking, and you suddenly feel your arm lifting and your hand reaching out, and you gently trace the band of the crown once round to make sure it is real, and then you close the whole of your hand around it and you snatch it with a jerk and look at it in the same way you looked at her when she slowly undressed you that night in your room. And then before anyone can do anything, take anything away, you put the crown on your head, pretending you're not being reverential, but you are a bit, trying to be that cocky and cool person that all the people down there have been inspired by and now should be slightly scared of. And then there's a moment of pure utter silence, like you get at 4 a.m. when everything is still or dead, and then you're almost blown back by this gust of noise, this rush of love and fear and hope and expectations and dreams, all in this one blast, this one expansion of emotion. 64. Yeah, that'd be cool. 64.1. Yeah, that'd be fucking cool. Right, 2 more and then I shall take my leave. As such a divinely cultured and aesthetic audience, you will all know that the 18th century's greatest British portrait painter is Joshua Reynolds, and I am here to tell you that that is wrong, because obviously the 18th century's greatest portrait painter is George Romney, and I tell you that because he is mentioned in this poem along with the nation's sweetheart at that time, Emma Hamilton. The poem is called Licking Stamps. Let me guess, painter boy, you'll depict me as your Emma Hamilton in that Romney portrait, or Cheesecloth and Circe, before moving on to some nonsense about how I'm an antebellum babe and that you have a battle plan for courting to neuter my Gatling gun tongue. And then you'll have me say something like, I want to be ravaged like Dresden in 1945. When clearly I want to be ravaged like Northumbria in 865. But still, really, the martial metaphor? I don't want things like fireworks or starlight either. The oil spill is better, but then that's making sex with me topical when it should be newsworthy. I know, I've got it. How about fucking me is like licking stamps, sticky, time-consuming, and capable of taking you to destinations exotic and mundane. Yes, I like that very much. And I take my leave with this. The poem is called Gunmetal. The sky vibrates like Mussolini's mistress's dentures in a Waterford tumbler. The sky throbs precipitately pink like the ululating estrogen of a Take That fan. The sky is a precious, precious green, Edmund, a precious, precious green. The sky is as cold as an ersatz gazpacho made out of a homeopathic Aldi tomato. The sky is as playfully obtuse as an obscure collection of Flaming Lips B-sides. The sky is as rigorously gloomy as a Bank of England economic prognostication. The sky is an edition of Noel's House Party, full of gunge and the sound of a booming god laughing at our pratfalls. The sky is a flying change of leg in the dressage. The sky is a towel-in Google chat, endlessly referring to its own digital circularity. The sky is not the sky, it is the sea, having got terribly confused at Job Centre Plus. The sky is an engine powered by steam and onions and polystyrene chips. The sky's just fucking awesome, okay? And doesn't need a weapons-based simile to make it so. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Rishi.
Way.
Give me a round of applause for all 6 of the poets tonight. That's Danny Hayward, Kat Sinclair, Jacqueline Frost, Verity Spot, Nat Raha.